welcome. Welcome to the Lighthouse for today's session. Make sure you're on mute, please. So all week we've been tuning into quite possibly one of the biggest challenges of this time, aside from COVID itself. And that is the challenge of the cold depression and this gray period on the planet that we're moving through right now. So I've all week long been assembling different practices for addressing just that. And for today we're going to work with mantra, which is really one of my first altars, and we haven't worked with mantra in IP here in this remote context in quite a while. It's, all of us are affected right now by the pressurization in the world, each and every one of us, whether or not we have ever in our lives experienced acute or chronic depression. My dog is, will you please bring that to me? She has been so rowdy all week in these sessions, and she keeps unearthing tennis balls from who knows where and bringing them into the room, of course wanting to play. So if you hear this auxiliary sound, it's the dog. We are all experiencing, the pressurization, but we can no longer expect our bodies to just power us through this time, right? We have to rely on our frequency, and so that's really what today's meditation is going to do for us. Is it's gonna get in there at the level of frequency. Everything that we do, and I got the tennis ball. It's a very well loved one. Everything we do in IP, it soothes our nervous system. It restores our prana. It restores our chi, our life force, which then has a direct and immediate and pretty complete effect on our radiant body, which is the most sublime and sophisticated and subtle body that we have to be. Bear with me here for a second. I'm going to jump out of the screen and get rid of the tennis ball. I've had to do way too much of that in the past week. You're so rowdy. Normally I love that, but not while I'm trying to teach. So I've got a beautiful, this is really going to be, in terms of your physical body, not a lot of doing, although I am, and this is uncommon in this remote context, I am going to invite you to chant with me, because the nature of this mantra that we'll dig into here in a moment is really an efficient mantra for you to be using your tongue on all of the meridians on the roof of the mouth in a way that's going to balance your brain in a pretty big way. So before we actually get into it, I want to read this amazing poem. Sometimes on Fridays, it's been such a busy week that sometimes I just want to read poetry to you. And sometimes I just want to read poetry the whole time to you, but we'll do all the other things too. But here, this poem is so relevant with regards to the season. It's relevant to the emergence from this gray period on the planet that we're going through. It's relevant with respect and honoring to all of the various ways that we experience this cold depression that we're going through as a species. This is Rumi, and it's called I Return Again. I return again like the blossoms in spring. I return again to break the lock of the prison and the grip of the mind. I return to destroy the power of the mind that is eating away the heart of the human being. From the very beginning, I vowed to give my life to this path. To break this promise would be to break the very back of that which has given me life. If you see the mind take over your life, don't worry. I cut off its root in a sacred way. You said yes to me and let me come to your home, and I destroy everything madly until nothing remains. I return again to break the lock of the prison and the grip of the mind. I return again like the blossoms in spring. So Rumi has really articulated the power of cyclicity that we live in inextricably and that we can never separate ourselves from. And this prison that he points to of the mind that he went in and so meticulously and compassionately and fearlessly cut off at the root in a sacred way. Oh, isn't that beautiful? He cut it off at the root in a sacred way. And this is what we also need to do for ourselves as awakening beings when we recognize that the mind is taking over our life, you know? And how common, how easy is it for the mind to take over our lives? I mean, we are living in a megawatt information society, and we are suffering in various ways from megawatt information syndrome. So like I said, one of my first altars, which is this little music box, which has been all over the world and is literally held together with spit. I think if you look at this little instrument the wrong way, it might fall apart. But it is so well journeyed, and it's like it's a magical box, this harmonium. And the sounds that come out of this harmonium are so powerful. And the sounds that are going to come out of you here in a moment are really powerful too. And I want you to, just quickly, I want to speak to some of the power points in your anatomy that really matter when you're chanting these chants. You know, when I first started learning chants, I was a zealot student of West African dancing, and started learning all of these incredibly beautiful chants that went with these dances from Mali and Guinea, and realized that I actually loved the effects, yes, of the dancing, for sure, but the chanting is so powerful. And then I went on for many years, and still do to some degree, chant a lot of Sanskrit mantras that are so sacred and amazing. But most recently, in the past many years, I've been really turning my attention to, well, a lot of the Buddhist mantras, but what we're going to do today is a Gurumukhi mantra. And Gurumukhi is this amazing language. It's kind of onomatopoetic. It's so powerful. And the multiple opportunities that you have when in a recitation of Gurumukhi to activate these points on the roof of your mouth that then correspond with like all the neurotransmitters of the brain is so rich and so powerful. So I want you here in a few minutes to chant with me, but I'm going to give you a mudra that is for working with burnout. So if you were in yesterday's session, at one point I was sort of frenetically rattling off all these various indications of the experience of cold depression. And cold depression, unlike chronic and acute depression, is very tricky to work with because it can hide, and we can have no idea that we're actually depressed, and we can then turn all of that sort of misery towards overworking and towards reaching for the rush in all the ways that deplete our prana and that reduce our radiance. So this is a mudra. If you've worked with me and in any of these contexts where we use mudra, you have some experience with how powerful they are, right? So you're not simply placing the backs of the hands and the fingers together, but you're actually pushing. And then this is all you're gonna do, okay? And sometimes we're so spent that we can just show up and maybe do this and maybe listen, and that's enough. That's like kind of engaging in the meditation at that homeopathic level. But if you want to chant with me, I would love for you to do so. Before I actually articulate the Gurumukhi sounds that are in the mantra, I want to tell you what it means. So it means I am going to give my pain to the creative infinity, and I will then thereby take home peace, the peacefulness that is from within myself and that I have grown that is returning again and again, like the blossoms of spring. That was my little addition. That's not the literal translation of the mantra, but so I'm giving my pain to the creative infinity, and I'm taking home peace. So it's said in some of the early teachings of working with this particular mantra that when you get into the recitation, and we're going to work in a really beautiful melodic groove that is uplifting. So it's not a melancholic, minor notes. They're going to be bright and uplifting. It's said that when you get into the recitation loop, the continuity of the mantra, that you begin to actually feel foolish for being angry. And I was talking about this earlier this week, that our depression is almost always trackable in a meaningful way back to some original root of anger. So you begin, because of the mantra, you begin to feel foolish for being angry, and then you thereby watch the dissolution of the depression. And then what happens is the spinal column and the nervous system and the radiance of your heart mind begin to ascend like a well-nourished plant in the light of the sun. And we're beginning to feel that here, in this part of the world, here on the isthmus. So this mudra, it's for the relief of burnout. And I know that a lot of you are experiencing burnout. I had a really candid conversation with my mom yesterday, who is a long-standing yoga teacher, and she's been teaching virtually, for this past year. And she was saying yesterday, I'm done teaching virtually. Like, she just wants to be in the room with human beings again. And I get it, and I know you get it. We miss that, right? That's what we're deprived of right now, is the meaningful human connection of feeling the nervous system to nervous system kind of rapport that we don't get when we're just working through screens. So if you've got any kind of burnout lurking in your system, let this dukkha parahara sukha gadale jai mantra. You want to say that with me? Dukkha parahara sukha gadale jai. Dukkha parahara sukha gadale jai. That's the mantra. I'm giving my pain to the creative infinity, and I'm going to take home peace. We all need a little bit of this. I feel it in the collective ethos. So I'm going to turn this down and off. Have you made your mudra? When we've got that sort of deep sense of loneliness, or that sort of like prevailing sense of anxiety or kind of loss of meaning, all of these experiences of the cold depression that have us feeling cut off from spirit, from strength, from source, from inner guidance, we can elect in a wakeful way to just insert even 5 minutes of this stuff, even 3 minutes of this stuff will affect your blood. It'll affect your circulatory system. Then it goes in and it affects, your multiple nervous systems, and then it affects the multiple layers of your mind. And the next thing you know, again, you're feeling maybe a little foolish for feeling separate from your essential nature, which is joy. We suffer as human beings because we forget to take delight in what the universe has created for us to enjoy. So take a moment. You've got the mudra. You're ready to sing with me. I wish I could hear you, but it just doesn't work if we're all singing together through the screen. Take a moment to think about what you're going to delight in more so. When we get onto the other side of this practice. Hold on, my dog jumped into my lap and there we go, messed with some of my drones. We're all good now. Just breathing deep for right now. Parara sukha gadale jai, dukkha parara Take one more breath with your hands in the mudra. So beautiful. And then relax your hands onto your lap. You know, we spend a majority of our life in our minds, right? So we might as well make it a beautiful place to be. And hopefully you're feeling the experiential evidence of the power of mantra and what it can do for our human organism. The dog was in my lap the whole time and kept pushing the harmonium further and further away from my body as I was playing. So, you know, when we work with these elevating mantras, it really creates a lot of clarity. It's like windshield wipers in our awareness, right? And it creates a lot of clarity for us around what thought trains we're jumping on. And we become, as practitioners, more and more picky about what thought trains we're jumping on. You know, the thought train that you're on, it has an effect on everything. It affects your breathing, it affects your thinking, it affects every small and big action in the scope of your life, the thoughts that you're having. And so this mantra and all of our work this week has been in an effort to create some clarity around that. And if we're on some kind of tumultuous mental projection, it also has an immediate effect in our physiology. If you're on a tumultuous mental projection, you almost always feel a tightness in your neck or in your low back. It's all tied into the fight or flight, and that's what happens when we do our practice work together, is we move and soothe the nervous system in a million ways so that we can be centered in the truth of who we are. And in closing, I want to read that poem one more time because I feel like it's such a good one. We'll open the gates and close the gates with I Return Again by Rumi. I return again like blossoms in spring. I return again to break the lock of the prison and the grip of the mind. I return to destroy the power of the mind that is eating away the heart of the human being. From the very beginning, I vowed to give my life to this path. To break this promise would be to break the very back of that which has given me life. If you see the mind take over your life, don't worry. I have cut it off at the root in a sacred way. You said yes to me and let me come to your home. I destroyed everything madly until nothing remains. I return again to break the lock of the prison and the grip of the mind. I return again like the blossoms in spring. And our practice too, it returns again and again for us. These things work when we work them. Thank you for showing up. I so value your presence and appreciate that you prioritize doing this work together as a community, and I appreciate that you trust my guidance. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next week. Sat Nam and Namaste.